Good morning, friends. We'll be discussing the polity static lecture, and in this lecture, we'll be discussing Parliament. So, Parliament, as you know, is the biggest chapter of the polity book, and every year you can expect at least 4 or 5 questions from this chapter. Therefore, in this lecture, I'll be only discussing Parliament. I'll not go into any other chapter. I'll be discussing in detail this chapter because somehow this is the most important chapter of the Lakshmikant book of the polity syllabus. So, Parliament, Article 79 to Article 122, between Article 79 and 122, the provisions deal with the Parliament. So we'll first start with the composition of two houses. So first is composition of Rajya Sabha. These are factual things. I think I don't need to explain. You can read it in the Lakshmikant book. So in case of Rajya Sabha, we have representation of states and also UTs. In case of UT, we have representation of Delhi and Pondicherry. So if a question comes and asks that in Rajya Sabha there is only representation of states, then you have to mark it wrong because it has representation of states and UT. Next is nominated members. So in Rajya Sabha we have 12 nominated members. And there are 250 is the overall strength of Rajya Sabha. Out of them, 12 are nominated and 238 are indirectly elected. Next we come to Rajya Sabha. So when we talk of Rajya Sabha, the total or the maximum strength fixed of Lok Sabha is 552. And out of this 552, 530 are representatives of state and 20 are elected from union territories, and 2 of the members are nominated by president, and they generally belong to the Anglo-Indian group. Next is the duration of the house. One more thing which is important in composition of Lok Sabha is the territorial consequences. So each state in India every constituency should have similar population. That is what is the idea of the of this constituency. So if there is Delhi constituency and there is Trivandrum constituency, then each constituency in Delhi should have a similar number of population as in Trivandrum. So suppose it's 2 million for each Lok Sabha seat. So on the basis of that, there will be 7 seats in Delhi, and if the population of Trivandrum is 4 million, which the population is not, it will have 2 seats. Right? So based on each constituency in India have similar kind of population. But this rule is, the states which have a population of below 6 million, these states are exempted from this rule. So in these states, the constituency could have a lower population. For example, Sikkim, Goa. In Goa, you have a population of 1 million in Goa, and you have around 40 seats, which means one seat has few thousand votes. One constituency has few thousand votes. Compare it with UP. In UP, every constituency has few lakhs votes. So this provision of that every constituency have a similar level of population, this is only valid for states which have population of more than 6 million. This could be a trivia for your exam. Next is the duration of Rajya Sabha. So it is 6 years, as you know. And one more thing, it is not the Constitution of India which has said that 6 years will be duration of Rajya Sabha. It is the representation of People's Act 1951, which has decided that Rajya Sabha will have a 6-year duration. So you have to remember which are the provisions which are given by the Constitution, because this is a favorite topic of UPSC. UPSC asks, the Constitution does not mention this, the Constitution mentions this. Then you have to be very careful with the words. There are many important things which the Constitution has not mentioned, but it is still there because of parliamentary rules, because of conventions, right? So you have to be careful in highlighting these facts. Next is duration of Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha, as you know, it's 5 years, except in an emergency it will be extended, or before 5 years also it could be dissolved if there is nobody, if there is no political party which has the majority. Next is members of parliament, and next is their qualification. So qualification of members of parliament in case of Lok Sabha, it's 25 years minimum age is required. In terms of Rajya Sabha, it is 30 years, right? He must be citizen of India. He must not be bankrupt. Vijay Mallya had to resign from his seat in Rajya Sabha because he became bankrupt. Because once you are bankrupt, then there are big chances that you are in a desperate situation. So you can use your position to financially benefit yourself. That is why it's a rule that all the major posts in India, all the major government posts in India, they are excluded for people who are bankrupt. He must be, and one more thing, he must be registered as an elector in any of the parliamentary constituency in India, right? And secondly, if he is fighting from reserve seat, he should be a member of that seat. But a reserve individual, a SC and ST, can fight elections in India from any seat in India. So they are not prevented from fighting elections from non-reserve seats. Next is disqualification. So under the Constitution, a person shall be disqualified for being elected as MP if he holds the office of profit, and two, if he has unsound mind as declared by the court, and thirdly, he is not a citizen of India, or he has voluntarily taken the citizenship of any other country. So there was this case few years back where one MP was citizen of Nepal and therefore he had to resign his seat. So he had to, if he becomes a foreign national, automatically he is disqualified from the post of MP. Now this is what Constitution says. Constitution has given these 3 grounds for qualification. Now understand the difference. There are some rules which have been given by Constitution, and there have been some rules which have been given by which have been laid down in the Representation of People's Act 1951 or in the parliamentary rules. They are not given in the Constitution. So other than these 3 grounds which are given by the Constitution, the Representation of Parliament Act 1951 has also given few further grounds for disqualification. So we'll look into that. So there are 8 grounds on which you could be disqualified according to the Representation of People's Act. First is that you must not be found guilty of certain electoral offence or corrupt practices in the elections. Second is you must not be convicted for any offence which results in imprisonment of 2 or more years. Thirdly, you must not, or you must have not failed to lodge an account of your election expenses within the time. Like there was on MLA in Madhya Pradesh few years back who was disqualified on this ground. Fourthly, you must not have any interest in the government contracts and services. So if you're a businessman, once you become MP and MLA, you have to leave your business. Fifthly, you must not be director or managing agent, nor hold the office of profit in a corporation in which government has at least 25% share. Sixthly, you must not be dismissed from the government service for corruption or disloyalty towards the state. Seventh is you must not be convicted for promoting enmity between different groups or for the offense of bribery. And lastly, you must not be have been punished for preaching and practicing social evils like untouchability, dowry, and sati. So, who decides the disqualification? So, see, there are two grounds of, if the disqualification is on these grounds, these eight and the last three, then it is the president which decides whether you are disqualified or not, whether you should be disqualified or not. In all these 8 cases and in the 3 cases which are given by the constitution, it is the president which decides whether you should be disqualified or not. But however, there is one more case of disqualification which is anti-defection. Anti-defection means that you reach parliament with the mandate from one party and then after in midway you leave that party and join another party, or you don't vote according to what the whip of that party says. So in that case, you could be, the party can appeal for your disqualification, and in that case the speaker will decide whether you are disqualified or not, and his decision will be final, right? In case of other criteria for disqualification, it will be president who will decide that, and president will not act in stone. He will get advice from the election commission. So that is not his discretionary power. Based on the election commission's advice, the president will act. So recently the AAP incident happened, right? It was decided by the election commission that the AAP MLAs were involved in office of profit, right? Then the election commission said that our election commission recommended that they should be disqualified, and president then accepted, or president then acted on this advice, right? But later it could reach the court. The court could say that there is no solid ground behind their disqualification, like it did in the AAP case, where the High Court reversed the judgment. So there are 4 grounds on which you can be disqualified on the grounds of defection. One is if a person voluntarily gives a membership of a political party on whose ticket he is elected to the house. You must have been wondering, there is a guy called Shatrughan Sinha. Shatrughan Sinha has been abusing BJP from last 3 years, right? He is more of an opposition member than he is part of the government. But he is not quitting the party. He is not quitting the party because he knows that he will quit the party, he will be disqualified, he will have to resign from the parliament. But if the party throws him out, then in that case he will continue as an MP, right? Second case is that if he votes or he abstains from voting in a house contrary to any direction given by the political party. So if political party, the whip of the political party says that you have to vote in favor of this bill or against the bill, and if you don't do that, then in that round also you could be disqualified. Third is if an independent member joins any political party, then in that case also. Fourthly, if any nominated member joins political party after expiry of 6 months. So a nominated member can join any political party within the first 6 months of his nomination. But if he joins it after 6 months, then he will be disqualified. So in case of Rajya Sabha, it will be the chairman of the Rajya Sabha who will decide the disqualification. In terms of Lok Sabha, it will be speaker. Next is vacating of seats. So this section involves with what happens when you are elected from two houses, or if you are elected, or if you are already a member of, or you are already an MLA and you become MP, or you are already a member of Lok Sabha, or if you are already a member of Rajya Sabha and you then get elected to Lok Sabha. So what happens in that case? What are the laws? This provision deals with that. So according to the Representation of People's Act, not by Constitution. Read my words very carefully. Representation of People's Act, not by Constitution. It says that a person cannot be a member of both the houses of Parliament at the same time. So therefore, there is some rules which this Act tells. First is that if a person is elected to House of Parliament, he must intimate within 10 days in which house he wants to continue, right? And if he does not intimate, then automatically his Rajya Sabha seat will get vacant. Right? Secondly, if sitting member of one house is elected to the other house, his seat in first house becomes vacant. This is the second provision for this. Third is, if a person is elected to two seats in a house, so there have been a lot of politicians like Mulayam Singh Yadav, one from Azamgarh and Etawah, right? There are a lot of politicians who, even Modi fought from Varanasi and Vadodara. So when a MP or an MLA wins from two seats, then he has to exercise his option for one. He has to tell which seat he will continue to hold and which seat he will resign. Otherwise, if you don't tell, if you will not tell, then both of his seats will get vacant. This rule is very hard. If you don't tell, then both of your seats will be vacant. Similarly, a person cannot be a member of both member of parliament and member of legislative assembly. So if a person is so elected, his seats in parliament becomes vacant if he does not resign his seat in the state legislature within 14 days. So you have to resign your seat from state legislature within 14 days. If you don't do that, your seat in the parliament will automatically get vacant. So you have to tell them that I want to leave by, or you have to resign within 14 days from the state legislature seat. Next is Speaker of Lok Sabha. So, who is elected as a speaker? So, speaker is generally elected within the MPs. Within the MPs, generally the government which is in power, they elect their own speaker because they have the majority in the Lok Sabha. So usually the speaker remains in office during the life of Lok Sabha. However, if he has to vacate, he has to resign, and that resignation letter would be in the name of deputy speaker, not in the name of president. He has to write he will write his resignation to the deputy speaker. Secondly, he can be removed by using special majority. Special simple majority. Which means that at least 277 Lok Sabha members should agree for it. Total strength of House is 552. So at least 277 members should. It's like this. It's same as the case with the Vice President of India. That special majority is required, and you need at least more than half of the total strength of the house, which is 277. It is not present in voting case. That 300 people came, 151 people said that we want the speaker to be removed and he will be removed. No, he will only be removed when more than simple majority of overall strength of the house decides against his removal. Or sorry, decides in favor of its removal. One more thing is that, one more trivia is that when the resolution for the removal of speaker is under the consideration, he will not be presiding the house. Though he could be present there, but he will not be presiding the house. And secondly, he can speak and take part in the proceeding of house at that time when there is resolution for his removal, and he can vote in the first instance. So when there will be instance in first voting, he can vote. But if there is if there is tie, if 276 people said that we want the speaker to be removed, 277 say no, we don't want the speaker to be removed. In case of tie, or it could be 255 and one member didn't claim. In that case, the speaker cannot have a casting vote. Right? So he can take part in its own proceedings of the removal. He can vote at the first instance, but if there is a tie, in that case, speaker cannot vote or cannot cast the deciding vote. Let's move to the next part, which is the role and powers and functions of speaker. Many of these things are factual, which are given Lakshmikant. So speaker is the head of Lok Sabha. He is guardian of power and privileges of the members of the house. He is the principal spokesperson of the house. He is in his capacities. He has power, and it is from three areas. One is one is Constitution of India. Second is rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha, and third is parliamentary convention. He also has power to maintain order and decorum in the house for conducting its business and ruling its proceedings. Secondly, he is the final interpreter of provisions with respect to Constitution of India, rules of procedure, the conduct of business in Lok Sabha, and parliamentary president. So he is the final interpreter. He will decide what does the constitution says, what does the parliamentary rule says, what does the convention says. He has the power to adjourn the house or suspend the meeting in the absence of quorum. He also does not vote in the first instance, but he can exercise a casting vote in case of tie. Now here a lot of people will get confused, so I will make it clear one more. So see, there are two kind of circumstances. First circumstances, when there is a resolution for the removal of speaker himself, when there is a resolution in the house for his removal itself, right? In that case, he can vote in the first instance, but he cannot have a casting vote in case of tie. This is when the resolution is for his own removal. In all other scenarios, when there is any deadlock on any bill, then the speaker cannot vote in the first instance. That's opposite of this. But he can give his casting vote in case of any deadlock, in case of equality of votes. Right? So you have to remember two scenarios. First is when the resolution is for his own removal, and second is in all other ordinary cases when there is a bill, there is a voting on a bill or any other issue. Also, he presides over the joint sitting of the house. He also allows the secret sitting of the house at the request of the leader of the house. He also decides whether a bill is a money bill or not, and his decision is final. He also decides the question of disqualification of any member of Lok Sabha on the grounds of anti-defection. He is also ex officio chairman of the Indian Parliamentary Group. He appoints the chairman of all parliamentary committees in Lok Sabha, and he is also the chairman of Business Advisory Committee, Rules Committee, and General Purpose Committee. So, what are the provisions for? What are the provisions given for the independence and impartiality of Speaker? So, there are three provisions. One is that he can be removed by the special or absolute majority, as we have discussed earlier. Second is that the motion of his removal can only be considered and discussed when it has a support of at least 50 MPs. And thirdly, he is given very high order of precedence. So he is placed at seventh rank along with the Chief Justice of India. Next is the Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha. So when we say Deputy Speaker is also elected by Lok Sabha members from among its members. So among those who have been elected in the Lok Sabha, one is selected as the Deputy Speaker. And how does he get removed? So he gets removed in the same manner as Speaker gets removed. Same manner. There is no other manner in which he would be removed. And how are the other ways he can, his term would be cut short. So he can always resign by writing to the Speaker. So Speaker writes to Deputy Speaker when he or she wants to resign, and Deputy Speaker will write to the Speaker when he or she wants to resign. So Deputy Speaker acts as the Speaker of the House in the absence of Speaker. He also presides over a joint session when Speaker is not available. And when Speaker presides the House, then this Deputy Speaker is like any other ordinary member. He takes part in proceedings, he asks questions, he makes noise, he does everything when he is not functioning as a Speaker. One more trivia with Deputy Speaker is that if Deputy Speaker becomes part of any of the committee of the Parliament, he automatically becomes its chairman. This is untrivia. If he becomes part of any of the committee, he becomes its chairman. So according to the convention, Deputy Speaker is generally from the leading opposition party, but NDA government broke this convention when they appointed member from AIADMK, not from Congress, as the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Next we will deal with is panel of chairpersons of Lok Sabha. So, panels of chairpersons of Lok Sabha is that some people are appointed to preside over the House when the Speaker and Deputy Speaker both are not available. So there could be scenarios when both Speaker and Deputy Speaker could not be available. In that case, the Speaker nominates among its member of panel around 10 chairpersons. So they are not elected, they are nominated by the Speaker. Always give focus or importance to the terms I use. Speakers nominate. There is no election for these 10 chairpersons. Speakers nominate 10 chairpersons across the parties to preside the House, and anyone can sit. When the Speaker and Deputy Speaker are not available, anyone out of those 10 can preside the House. And when they preside over the House, they have the same power as the Speaker has. And when the member of the panel of chairperson is also not present, any other person determined by the House could act as a Speaker. So there could be third scenario when these 10 people are also not available. In that case, anyone the House decides could preside as a Speaker. Next is Speaker Pro Tem, or what we call as Pro Tem Speaker. So Pro Tem Speaker is generally a temporary speaker. So when the house is, when there is Lok Sabha elections and the house is newly filled, Pro Tem Speaker work is to ensure that all the members take oath. And generally, the senior most or very experienced member is for interim period given this position of Pro Tem Speaker, and he is appointed, or it is the President himself who administers oath to the Pro Tem Speaker. This is a very trivial thing. The President himself administers oath to the Pro Tem Speaker. And after a speaker is elected, full-time speaker is elected, this person resigns. Next is Chairman of Rajya Sabha. This we have dealt only yesterday. So Chairman of Rajya Sabha is also the Vice President of India. And one trivia is that he is not the member of House, unlike Speaker. And Speaker is part of Parliament, but Chairman is not the part of Rajya Sabha. So, Chairman and the powers of Chairman are similar to the Speaker. Just the Speaker has two additional powers. One is that Speaker decides that which bill is money bill and which is not. And secondly, Speaker presides over the joint sitting of the Parliament. Or in other thing which is similar is that unlike the Speaker, Chairman is not the member of House. It's not similar. But like Speaker, Chairman also cannot vote in the first instance. So, just like Speaker, Chairman also cannot vote on the first instance during any ordinary bill. But he has a casting vote in case of tie, right? And also, the Vice President cannot, just like Speaker, preside over the Rajya Sabha sitting when there is a resolution for his own removal. Here is one more specific trivia which you have to remember very, very carefully. That Speaker, as we know, when there is a resolution for removal, he can vote in the first instance. But in case of Chairman of Rajya Sabha, he cannot even vote in the first instance when there is a resolution for his removal. Right? Very thin basic difference, but very important difference. These small differences you need to understand, because everybody reads Parliament, everybody reads Lakshmikant, but why do not every person solves 18 out of 20 questions of Lakshmikant which comes in the exam? It's because they miss this small trivia. So my idea is to teach you these basics, plus also have a special focus on these trivia, which you should not miss at any cost. So, Speaker can vote in first instance during when there is a resolution for its removal. Vice President cannot vote even in the first instance. Next is Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So, Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha is also elected by Rajya Sabha among its members. And Deputy Chairman, when he has to resign, he has to send in writing it to the Chairman, right? And just like Speaker, he can also be removed by absolute majority in the Rajya Sabha, right? Not in Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha. So Deputy Chairman also it's the same powers like Deputy Speaker, and it acts as a chairman when the chairman is not present, and when the chairman is present, he is like a normal MP. He acts like a normal MP. Also, yes. Next is panel of Vice Chairperson of Rajya Sabha. They are similar like the chairperson that we have in the Lok Sabha, that some people are nominated, and once the chairman and chairman is not present, they can preside over the house. Now, the next is leader in parliament. So, first is leader of the house. So, under the rules of Lok Sabha, the leader of the house means the prime minister, right? So, he is the leader of the house. There is also leader of house in the Raj Sabha, and he is the minister and member of Raj Sabha, and is nominated by the prime minister to function as such. Then there is leader of opposition. So any political party which has 1/10 of the seat of the total seat of the Lok Sabha, then he automatically becomes leader of opposition. 1/10 seats. But if no political party has 1/10 seat, in that case, it is up to the speaker to give recognition to the political party about whether it wants to give anyone leader of opposition status or not. For example, in this Lok Sabha, Congress has 44 seats, and many people get confused that Mallikarjun Kharge is the leader of the opposition, but he is not, because he is not recognized by the government. Right? He could be leader of the Congress or he could be leader of single largest party in Lok Sabha, second single largest party, but he is not given the status of leader of opposition. Next is whip. First thing about the office of whip is that this is nowhere mentioned in the Constitution of India. Again, a trivia. Not mentioned in Constitution. So it is they are mentioned in the rules of the house, rules of the parliament. They are mentioned there. So office of whip, what does his role is? His role is to ensure that the MPs follow the party line. His job is to see that if party says that we will support the GST bill, then his job is to ensure that all the first thing all the members of the party are present in the house, because that's an important issue. And secondly, they vote in favor of GST. If they don't vote in favor of GST, then whip has been given power to advise the speaker to disqualify the person. Next is sessions of the parliament. So we have to deal with these words. First is summoning. So President of India from time to time summons each house of the parliament to meet. The maximum gap between two sessions could not be more than 6 months. If for we have discussed this yesterday. If 6 months for 6 months, and generally it is the cabinet which advises the president that you have to summon the session or call for the session. But suppose for 6 months the cabinet has not advised to the president to summon the session, then president has discretionary power to himself announce that parliament will hold a session. So there are two concepts which we need to understand. One is adjournment, and second is prorogation. So adjournment means that the sitting of the house is terminated for an hour. It could be for days, right? It means that sitting of the house is terminated. Next is prorogation. So prorogation means that if the president announces a prorogation, which means that not just the sitting of the house is terminated, but it also means that session itself is terminated. So if there is budget session and president announces that now I have announced prorogation, which means that session itself is expired. Secondly, this is done by the Speaker of the House. And this is done by the President of India. Thirdly, when there is adjournment, it does not affect the bills or any other notices which are pending. But when there is prorogation, all the bills which are there, they continue to stay, but all the notices get expired. So all notices get expired. Next is this solution. So this solution means that, see, unlike in prorogation, the session is expired, but then we will meet for the next session. When house is dissolved, it means that it's over now. Now there will be next election. There will be fresh filling of the house. So this solution could take place in two ways. First is automatic dissolution when these 5 years are over and then it's expired, right? Second is when the president decides to dissolve the house, which he is authorized to do once the Lok Sabha is dissolved before the completion of the normal tenure. In this case, generally the government tells him, advises him that we have lost majority and there is no one to claim. For example, in 1999, what happened? The parliament was only 3 years old, but Vajpayee lost its majority and Sonia Gandhi could not prove the numbers. Therefore, the government advised the president that you should now dissolve the dissolve the Lok Sabha because nobody is in a position to frame the government, and therefore elections are the only possibility. So there is another basic concept which needs to be understood, which is very, very confusing but very, very important, because last year UPSC has asked a question on it, and I remember every 2-3 years they ask one question on it, that what happens to the bills when the house is dissolved. There are 5-6 conditions. In some cases the bill gets lapsed, in some cases the bill does not get lapsed. So we'll deal with these 6 situations. First situation is that if a bill is pending, so everything we are talking about in a case, in a scenario when Lok Sabha is dissolved. We're talking of this scenario. So in this scenario, in the first scenario, we have a bill which is pending in Lok Sabha. It is not introduced in Rajya Sabha, it is pending in Lok Sabha. This bill lapses because it's still pending in the Lok Sabha. Second is a bill which is passed by Lok Sabha but pending in Rajya Sabha. this also lapses. Third situation is that a bill is not passed by, it is not passed by two houses due to some disagreement, and before the house is dissolved, the president has already called for joint session. Before the house Lok Sabha is dissolved, the president has already called for the joint session. In that case, the bill does not lapse. Fourth situation is when a bill is pending in Rajya Sabha itself, when it is not been introduced in Lok Sabha, it is still pending in Rajya Sabha. In that case also it does not lapse. So here is a minute difference. If a bill is passed by Lok Sabha and then pending in Rajya Sabha, then it lapses. But if bill has not been introduced in Lok Sabha, it is firstly introduced in Rajya Sabha and it is being pending in Rajya Sabha itself. In that case, it does not lapse. Fifth is a bill passed by both houses of the parliament but pending the assent of the president. That also does not lapse. And sixthly, a bill passed by both the houses but returned by the president for reconsideration also does not lapse. These are the 5-6 conditions in which a question could be asked by UPSC, and I have explained it all, and now you don't need to look into the book. Next is the concept of quorum. So when we talk of quorum, it is the 1/10 of the member of each house which is necessary. If the quorum is not filled, then the sitting of the parliament cannot happen. So it is 55 members for Lok Sabha and 25 members for the Rajya Sabha. So without that, no business of house will be conducted. Next we have is rights of ministers and attorney general. This again has a lot of trivial things. This chapter has a lot of trivial things. I mean, if you give it to me, I can set 100 marks paper. I can ask 100 questions from this chapter itself. There are so many trivia in this chapter. I guess the maximum trivia we have in any of the chapters of Lakshmi Kant is in this chapter. So you have to, after what I teach, you also have to read for Lakshmi Kant. Read it very carefully. So, Attorney General of House or the Attorney General, they have a right to attend the proceedings of the House. They have the right to speak. They have the right to take part in the functions of the House, but he does not have the right to vote. Right to vote he does not have. Right? And when he speaks in the parliament, he gets all the immunity and the privilege which the normal MPs get, which means that he can speak freely whatever he wants, and no question could ask him or take him to task if he speaks something or if he speaks anything. Right? And secondly, each minister of the house, suppose the minister is from Lok Sabha, then he has the right to take part in the proceedings of Rajya Sabha also. Or similarly, if somebody is from Rajya Sabha, and he can take part in the proceedings of Rajya Sabha also, right? Next is devices of parliamentary proceedings. So, first device is question hour. So, the first hour of every parliament sitting is slotted for question hour. And during this time, the members can ask, start, unstart, and short notice question with the minister. What is a start question? Start question requires an oral answer from the minister, and you can ask a supplementary question also from him. Unstart question is where the minister has to give a written reply, and you cannot ask a supplementary question. Third is short notice question, one that is asked by giving a notice of less than 10 days, and it has to be answered orally. Next is 0 hour. So 0 hour is unlike this have trivia here. Unlike the question hour, 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. Rules of procedure of the House. It is just an informal advice. It is an informal device, which is an Indian. I mean, it's an Indian starting. It is not there in British Parliament. It's an Indian invention. So the 0 hour starts immediately after the question hour ends, and it will be there till something else or something conclusive comes in the Parliament. It started in 1962. Next is motions. So, no discussion on the matter of general public importance can take place except a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. So, no discussion can take place on the matters of general public importance without uh, except on a motion made from the consent of the presiding officer. And when the motion is introduced, the House usually expresses its decisions or opinions on various issues through either adoption or rejection of the motion. So the most of the motions moved by the members, they come under three categories. One is substantive motion. Second is substitute motion. And third is subsidiary motion. These are the three kinds of motion we have. Substantive motion is self-contained. I mean, motion itself says what is the purpose of the motion. For example, impeachment of president, motion for impeachment of president, motion for removal of chief election commissioner. Second is substitute motion, which is adopted or which is moved to replace the original motion. Third is subsidiary motion, which is a motion by itself has no meaning. Itself, the motion has no meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or the proceeding of the House. Next is closer motion. We now deal with different kinds of motion. Next we'll deal with different kinds of motion. So first kind of motion is closer motion. So closer motion is moved by any member to cut short any debate on any matter which is going in the Parliament or in the House. So there are four kinds of closer motion. One is simple closer. Second is closer by compartments. Third is kangaroo closer. And fourth is Polity closer. If you would have read about French Revolution, you must have been aware with this word guillotine, which was used specifically by Robespierre and the era of Reign of Terror to kill the opponent or to guillotine them. So first is simple motion. So simple motion is one when the member moves that matter, or when the member says that this matter has been sufficiently debated now it has to be put to vote. Second is closer by compartment. So in this case, the clauses of the bill or the lengthy resolutions are grouped into parts before the commencement of the debate. And the debate covers the part as a whole, and the entire part is then put to vote. Third is kangaroo closer. So under this type, only important issues are taken or important clauses are taken for debate. Rest of them are passed without any discussion. Fourth is the guillotine. So in case of guillotine, it is when, see, suppose a long debate has already taken place on a issue, and now the member feels that we don't have time left for further discussing this bill, but there is a lot of part which is still not discussed. Then all the remaining part or undiscussed part is put together and put to vote. Next kind of motion is privilege motion. Now, privilege motion is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privilege by minister. And it is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of house, or the one or the other member of the house has committed this breach of privilege. Next is calling attention motion. So it is again introduced by the parliament by member to seek the attention of any minister in a matter of urgent importance, right? And just like the 0 hour, it is also an Indian invention in the parliamentary process. However, unlike the 0 hour, this motion is mentioned in the rules of procedure. So there is a difference between 0 hour and calling attention motion. 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure of parliament. However, calling attention motion is mentioned in the rules of procedure of parliament. Next, we'll compare the censure motion and the no confidence motion. We'll discuss differences between censure motion and no confidence motion. Again, an important part and could be asked in the exam. So, in case of censure motion, you need to first state the reason for its adoption. So, you need to tell the speaker why the House should adopt this. In this case, you don't require any reason to tell that why you want to introduce no confidence motion against the government. Secondly, it can be moved against individual ministers or a group of ministers or entire council of ministers. So in this case, it's not necessary that you have to move it against the government itself. There is the option of moving against the minister, one particular minister itself. Like, I don't like the work of Finance Ministry. I will kind of introduce a motion against the Finance Minister itself. And in case of no confidence, it can only be moved against the Council of Ministers. Third is, it is moved for censuring the Council of Ministers for specific policies and action, which means it is moved to somebody has a grievance that Finance Ministry is neglecting the woman. So a woman MP can introduce a motion against the Finance Minister saying because of that grievance, right? So it's directed against a specific grievance. While in case of no confidence motion, it is moved for extending the confidence of Lok Sabha in the Council of Ministers. Fourth is, if it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers has not to resign here in case of censure motion. While in this case, the Council of Ministers has to resign if it is passed. Next we have is adjournment motion. So it is introduced in the Parliament in Lok Sabha to draw the attention of House to a definite matter of urgent public importance, and you need 50 members for its support to be introduced. So suppose there is some urgent matter going on in India, and one member wants to say that okay, we are discussing port, it's fine, but before discussing port, there is another matter of urgent importance which needs to be first discussed before we can discuss other issues. The good thing is the trivial thing is that it can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, it cannot be introduced. Right? The discussion on adjournment motion should not last for less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. There are some guidelines which are given, or there are some restrictions which are imposed on adjournment motion, and these include that it should not raise a matter which is definite, factual, urgent, and it should raise a matter which is definite, factual, urgent, and of public importance. Secondly, it should not cover more than one matter. Thirdly, it should be restricted to a specific matter of recent occurrence. Something which has happened 7 years ago, you cannot discuss it in terms of adjournment motion. Fourthly, it should not raise a question of privilege. Fifthly, it should not revive discussion on a matter which has already been discussed in the same session. Sixthly, it should not deal with any matter that is under adjudication by a court. And seventhly, it should not raise any question that can be raised on any other distinct motion. Next is motion of thanks. So, first section of after each general election and first session of every fiscal year is addressed by the president, and after the president addresses the motion, generally the motion of thanks is passed by the government. I guess last year this motion of thanks was defeated in the Rajya Sabha because the government did not have the numbers. Next we have is point of order. So a member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. So it means that it can raise the point that see the speaker and other members of the House are not following the rules which are mentioned in the parliamentary convention and parliamentary procedures. So usually it is raised by the opposition member and it is an extraordinary device as it suspends the proceedings of the House. Next is half an hour discussion. So it is meant for discussing matter of sufficient public importance which has been subjected to a lot of debate and the answer to which needs elucidation on the matter of fact. Next is short duration discussion. It is also known as 2 hours discussion and this should not exceed more than 2 hours. So the parliament can raise this discussion on the matter of urgent public importance. Next is legislative procedures in parliament. So legislative procedure is identical in both houses of parliament, whether it's Lok Sabha or it's Rajya Sabha. So before we go there, we have to discuss difference between public and private bill. So a public bill is introduced by the minister or the government. Private bill is given by the individual MP, usually from the opposition side. Secondly, it reflects the policies of the government. In second case, it reflects the stand of the opposition party. Thirdly, it has a greater chance to be approved of, and because the government has the number, right? And the private bills had last year. The question was asked for private bill, so most probably the question will not be asked for private bill again. But then again, it's UPSC. Fourthly, its rejection by the House amounts to, it's a big thing on the setback of the government because public bill is introduced by the government itself. And the rejection of private bill has no significance because mostly it has to be rejected. Fifthly, which is technical thing that it is introduced in the House requires 7 days of notice, while private bill requires 1 day of notice. So the bill in the parliament can be classified under 4 headings. First is ordinary bill, second is money bill, third is financial bills, and fourth is constitutional amendment. The president has different powers. These all bills have specific trivia which you need to read, and it is very important again for the exam. So we'll deal with each of them in detail. First is ordinary bill. So ordinary bill has generally 5 stages, and these are first reading, second reading, third reading, then is passed from the first house, then it is introduced in the second house. In the second house can do, or it has 4 alternatives. First is it may pass the bill as sent by the first house without any amendments. Second, it may pass the bill with amendments and return to the first house for reconsideration. Third is it may reject the bill altogether. Fourth is it may not take any action and the bill keeps on pending. So these are the 4 options the second house has. If the if the bill does, if there is complete disharmony among the both houses, then there is this provision of joint session which we will discuss in the next part. And after the bill is passed from the second house, then the bill is sent to the president for assent. And president, as you know, also has 3-4 options. We have discussed that in the chapter of president. Next we talk is the money bill. So money bill, article 1110 deals with the money bill. So it contains provisions dealing with any of the following matter: the imposition of abolition, remission or regulation of any tax, the regulation of borrowing of money by the union government, the custody of the Consolidation Fund of India or Contingency Fund of India, the appropriation of money out of Consolidation Fund of India. 3 other areas are there. However, the bill will not be deemed to be money bill if that provides for imposition of, see, these are technical things. You need to read it from the book. I can tell you in a simple way that difference between money bill and financial bill is that, or financial bill 1 is that money bill, there are 7 criteria, right? If the bill only deals with that, then that could be called as money bill. But if there is any bill which has some provision of taxation or finance or borrowing, but that is just a part of the bill. The bill itself is very wide. It has a number of other things also. Then that could not be called as a money bill. It could be called as a finance bill. The example I could give is of Aadhaar bill. Aadhaar bill, according to my understanding, is not a money. It could not be passed under the money bill heading, because Aadhaar has number of other things which has nothing to relate with Article 1110. But the problem is that discretionary power is given to speaker. It is the speaker which decides whether the bill is money bill or it's not an ordinary bill. And generally there is no rescue. Once the speaker decides the bill is money bill or it's not a money bill, then the opposition is no other option. And this is the main issue which need to be discussed in detail, and the government has been doing that from last 2-3 years. It has been passing number of bills under the category of money bill so that it can be easily passed in the house, since money bill is not, Rajya Sabha has no role to play in money bill, right? So what does Rajya Sabha have, what power does Rajya Sabha have in case of money bill? So Rajya Sabha can, when the bill is passed by Lok Sabha, it can be sent to Rajya Sabha, and Rajya Sabha has to just study the bill for the 14 days, and it can give some suggestions, not amendment. Lot of my students got this answer wrong 2 years back when it was asked, because it was written in the question in UPSC that the Rajya Sabha can amend the money bill. They got confused between amendment and suggestion word. But the word says that the Rajya Sabha can suggest the Lok Sabha that we want these changes, but it is up to Lok Sabha to accept those suggestions or not. Even if it does not accept the suggestion, then there is no problem. The bill could still be passed. And if Rajya Sabha does not take any action on the bill for 14 days, then the bill is deemed to be passed. So in case of money bill, the power of Lok Sabha is much greater than the power of Rajya Sabha. While in case of ordinary bill, both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha have equal power. Next is financial bills. So financial bill can be of 3 types. One is money bill, as we have discussed, Article 1110. Second is financial bill, category 1. And third is financial bill, category 2. So financial bill, category 1, deals with matters which, if the bill has some provisions which are where the topic is similar to Article 1110, but the bill is not solely based on that. So suppose there is a provision of taxation or borrowing or expenditure from Consolidation Fund of India, but the bill itself is very wide and it deals with many other provisions also. Then in that case, this bill could be categorized under the Financial Bill 1 category. And Financial Bill 1 category means that it is little different from the ordinary bill because it has two conditions. First, it can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, and second, it can be only introduced with the prior recommendation of the President. Now, second is Financial Bill 2. So, Financial Bill 2 contains provisions involving expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India, but it does not include any matters mentioned in Article 1110. Right? Now, here is a difference. Understand the difference between Financial Bill 1 and Financial Bill 2. Financial Bill 1 deals with some matters in Article 1110, but the bill contains many other things. Financial Bill 2 does not deal with any matter related to Article 1110. It only has provisions involving expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India. Right? Financial Bill 2 also, it is treated as an ordinary bill in all cases except one case, that prior recommendation of President is required for its introduction. Otherwise, this bill could be introduced in either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. There is provision of deadlock also here. There is provision of joint sitting. Rajya Sabha has equal power. It has equal power in case of Financial Bill 1 also. So it is similar to ordinary bill in all respect. Only in one respect it's different, which is that the prior recommendation of President is required. Next is joint sitting of the two houses. And when we talk of Constitution Amendment Bill, we read it yesterday that the President of India has no power to return the Constitutional Amendment Bill for reconsideration. And secondly, in case of Constitutional Amendment Bill, there is no provision of joint sitting. This is in these two areas. This bill is different from the ordinary bill or the money bill. That there is no provision of joint session. Even in case of money bill, there is no, because there is. I mean, it's very normal because Rajya Sabha hardly has any role to play there. But in case of Constitutional Amendment Bill also, there is no provision of joint sitting, and President has to give his assent to the bill. So joint sitting is an extraordinary machinery provided by the Constitution of India. Remember, Constitution of India, to resolve a deadlock between the two houses. So, in what circumstances can joint sitting of house could take place? So it could take place under three situations. Firstly, if the bill is rejected by the other house, secondly, if the house has finally disagreed to the amendments we made. So if the bill is introduced in Lok Sabha and then it is passed, after it's passed in Lok Sabha, it is introduced in Rajya Sabha, and Rajya Sabha has made some amendments to the bill, and those amendments are not accepted by the Lok Sabha, then in that case also we have a provision of joint sitting. Third is that if more than 6 months have passed and the bill is still pending in the Rajya Sabha, in that case also there is a provision of joint sitting. So joint sitting, in case of who presides over joint sitting, so it is the speaker which presides over the joint sitting. If the speaker is not available, then the deputy speaker presides over joint sitting. If deputy speaker is also not available, in that case the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha presides. So in no case the chairman of Rajya Sabha presides over the joint sitting because he is not the member of the parliament. So only thrice joint sitting has taken place till the independence or till independence. Next we deal with is the budget. Let's move to the next important provision which is parliament, which is the budget. So one trivia is the constitution refers to budget as its annual financial statement. It never and nowhere uses the term budget. Nowhere it uses the term budget. So it's a big trivia with respect to budget. If a question says that the constitution defines budget, then you have to mark it wrong because constitution nowhere uses the word budget. It uses the word annual financial statement. So you all must be knowing about what the budget is. I think you should be aware about because now is not the time where you should understand what the budget is because hardly 2 months are left for the exam. So what are the constitutional provisions with respect to budget, with respect to enactment of budget? So constitutional provisions are that Parliament can reduce or abolish a tax, but it cannot increase it. Second is that the Constitution or the Rajya Sabha has no power to vote on the demand for grants. Thirdly, the Rajya Sabha should return the finance bill or the money bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. Also, the budget shall distinguish expenditure on revenue account from other expenditure. And fifthly, that the estimates of expenditure in the budget shall show separately the expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and the expenditure from the expenditure to, on, and from the Consolidated Fund of India. Now, next thing we need to understand is what is the difference between charged expenditure and uncharged expenditure. So when we talk of charged expenditure or when we talk of types of expenditure in budget, there are two types of expenditure. One is charged and another is uncharged. So when we talk of charged expenditure are expenditure which are charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India, and they are not votable. They are not debatable. They not every time when the budget is passed, there is voting on that, and we want that expenditure to be done or not. Right? So these includes the allowances of the president, the salaries and the allowances of chairman, deputy chairman, speaker, deputy speaker, salaries and allowances of judges of Supreme Court, pensions of the judge of High Court, salary and allowances of CAG, salary and allowances of UPSC, administrative expenses of Supreme Court, office of the CAG, UPSC, the debt charges for which Government of India is liable, including interest, sinking fund charges, and likely any sum required to satisfy any judgment, degree, or award of any court or tribunal. These are the 9 areas which are called as charged areas, and these expenditure in these areas are not votable in the budget session. So first we have, and other than charged expenditure, every other expenditure is to be voted and debated upon in the Parliament. So what is the process of budget? So the process of budget would be involved in 6 steps. So first process is presentation of budget. Next is general discussion. Third is scrutiny by departmental committees. Fourthly, voting on demand for grants. Then fifthly and sixthly is passing of appropriation bill and finance bill. So these are the six stages in budget. Firstly, the budget is presented. Then there is general discussion on the clause of the budget. Then there is scrutiny by the departmental the committees related to any department. Next is voting on the demand of grants. Next is passing of appropriation bill and the finance bill. We'll come into all of these stages in the next part of the chapter. So the budget used to be presented in two things, the railway budget and the general budget, but now it's abolished. Now there is only one budget, which is general budget. Next is the general discussion, very common things, no need to remember anything. Third is scrutiny by departmental committees, again nothing special to read here. Fourth is important, which is voting on demand for grants. Now here, Rajya Sabha is not involved in any way. It's sole prerogative of the Lok Sabha. Right? So it's a sole prerogative of the Lok Sabha. In this voting for grants, we have this, or there could be some motions which could be introduced. And these motions are generally introduced by the opposition, which is not satisfied with some part of the budget. So there are three kind of motions which could be introduced during the voting on demand for grant stage. One is policy cut motion. Second is economic cut motion. And third is token cut motion. So during the policy cut motion, it represents when the opposition is or when the opposition disapproves the policy, and therefore it says or it presents a motion that the overall grant should be reduced to ₹1, which though is impractical, but that is how they show their disagreement with any policy of the government. Second is economic cut motion. Here the opposition is with the government, but somehow opposition is demanding that the amount you are spending on it is too much. Therefore, it suggests some amount which needs to be cut. So that amount that needs to be cut could come under the economic cut motion. Third is token cut motion. So here the opposition is not disagreeing with the government with the overall policy, but it has some grievance with some specific part of the policy, and therefore it suggests that the amount should be reduced by ₹100. So if 10 crore is given, it suggests that it should be reduced by 9 crore, or it should be reduced by ₹100. So 10 crore minus ₹100. It's kind of a token cut. The opposition want the policy to be passed, but to register their disagreement, they kind of adjust this kind of token cut. Next stage is passing of appropriation bill. So appropriation bills means that the constitution says that no money shall be withdrawn from the Constitution Fund of India except under appropriation made by the law. So this bill is passed by the parliament so that the government can take money out of Consolidated Fund of India for expenditure. Next is the passing of finance bill, which is to give effect to the financial proposals of the Government of India for following year, which means areas where taxes increased, area where taxes decreased, right? These are the areas under the finance bill. Now we come to another thing, which is the other grants, which is the grants. So sometimes the money allocated for any activity is not sufficient to fulfill or to completely implement that activity, because nobody here is in foresight now, right? You may think that you require, like for say, example, like take an example of Ayushman scheme. The government has given 2,000 crore for that. Now, suppose in the implementation of scheme, in mid-year, government realizes that we don't require 2,000 crore, but we require 10,000 crore for its implementation. Therefore, in midway, it can ask the government, it can ask the parliament for allowing them to give more excess grant. So this is what we call as other grant. So there are 4 5 categories. First is supplementary grant. Supplementary grant is granted when the amount authorized by the Parliament through the Appropriation Act for a particular service is found insufficient for that year. That's the example we give of Ayushman, that the amount which is allocated for that service is found to be insufficient. In that case, the government can ask for, under the category of supplementary grant for more grant from the government. Second is additional grant. So the additional grant, it is when a need has arisen during the current financial years because of expenditure, because of additional expenditure upon some new services which are not complete or which is not contemplated when the budget was passed. So probably in midway government has launched some new scheme, or government has launched some new initiative for which you require money, right? So for that services which are not considered when the budget was passed, and when you require money for that, that will come under the additional grant. Third is excess grant. So excess grant is granted when money has been spent on any service in excess of the amount granted for that service. So if the money granted for Manrega is 10,000 crores and the amount spent on it is 12,000 crores, then the government will have to ask the parliament for the permission of spending more. And a trivia here is that excess grants, before the demand for excess grants are submitted in the Lok Sabha for voting, they must be approved by the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament. So before you can put this motion for voting in the Parliament, you need to have a prior permission from the Public Accounts Committee. Next is exceptional grant. So this is granted for special purpose. And last is token grant. So token grant is granted when the fund to meet expenditure on new service is already there. It is there because somehow there could be a situation where you expected in NRHM scheme you have to spend 10,000 rupees, but somehow only 7,000 crore was spent, and there was activity B where you expected 10,000 rupees to spend. There you spent it, but there you require more money. So what you can do is that you can use that 3,000 crore which is the remaining of NRHM for that activity or for the scheme B, right? So in that case, you don't require money from the parliament. You just have to inform them that we are doing that. So for that token thing, they take just rupees 1 as a token. Now there are 3 funds, or the Constitution of India provides for following 3 funds for the central government. This is again very important because UPSC does ask or has been asking question from last 4 or 5 years. So these three funds are Consolidated Fund of India, Public Accounts of India, and Contingency Fund of India. So consolidated fund, it is the fund to which all receipts are credited and all payments are debited. So in other words, all the revenues received by the government of India and all loans raised by the government by the issue of treasury bills, loans or ways and means in advance, and all the money received by the government in repayment of loan forms the part of Consolidated Fund of India. So it includes three things. Firstly, it includes all the revenue received by the government of India. Secondly, all loans raised by the government by the issue of treasury bills, loans. And thirdly, all money received by the government in repayment of loan. All this is part of Consolidated Fund of India. Next we have is Public Accounts of India. On this a question was asked in 2016. So all the other public money other than those which are credited in the CFI is credited to the public accounts of India. So all money except which is being credited in the Consolidated Fund of India is being credited in the public accounts of India. So these includes provident fund deposits, judicial deposits, saving bank deposits, departmental deposits, remittances, and so on. Trivia here is that this is operated by executive action only. You don't require parliamentary permission for taking money out of public accounts of India. This is a big trivia you need to understand. Second is Contingency Fund of India. The Contingency Fund of India is again established by, or the Constitution has authorized the Parliament to establish Contingency Fund of India, and this is in this, if there is some situation where some emergency has happened, then the President releases the money out of this Contingency Fund of India. Just like the public accounts of India, it also does not require any parliamentary approval. Only executive action will do the needful. Next is multifunctional role of Parliament, which includes legislative powers and functions, executive powers. So yeah, this will, you know. So what are the legislative? Next we'll give it is the powers of president, or powers of parliament. So first is legislative power. So the power could be divided into legislative power, executive power, judicial power, financial power, electoral power, constitutional power. These are the 5-6 subheadings under which the powers of parliament could be subdivided. So, in terms of legislative power, well, it has power to pass laws on union list, and also with respect to concurrent list, if there is conflict between laws of state and the center, the parliamentary laws will prevail over the concurrent laws, except that the residuary powers, the power to make laws on the residuary subjects is also with the parliament. Also, the constitution has provided that under five circumstances, the parliament can make laws even on subjects of the state list. And what are these five criteria? First is when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution under Article 249. Second is when there is proclamation of national emergency. Third is when two or more states make a joint request to Parliament. Fourth is to implement any treaty provision. And fifth is when President rules in imposition. So under these five categories, Parliament can even legislate in the state subjects. Next is executive power. So executive power means that Lok Sabha can show non-confidence in the government by passing no confidence motion or by defeating government on a vital issue. Financial power is Parliament plays an important role in passing a budget. Constituent power means that Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution. Now that with Keshwan Bharti case judgment, the Constitution can amend any part of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights, but only constraint they have is basic structure should not be compromised. Fifth is judicial power, so it can impeach president, it can impeach vice president, it can remove vice president, it can recommend the removal of judges, chief election commissioner, it can punish its members and outsiders for breach of privilege. So now let's compare the position of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So there are some areas where the power of Lok Sabha is equal to Rajya Sabha. So these areas are introduction and passage of ordinary bill, introduction of passage of constitution amendment bill, introduction and passage of financial bill, not the non-money bill, financial bills, election and impeachment of president, election and removal of vice president, making recommendation to the president for the removal of chief justice and judge of Supreme Court, approval of ordinance issued by the president, approval of proclamation of all three types of emergency by the president, selection of ministers including the prime minister, enlargement of jurisdiction of Supreme Court and UPSC, consideration of report of Finance Commission, UPSC and CAT. In all these areas, the Rajya Sabha has equal power with the Lok Sabha. And there are some areas where the Rajya Sabha has unequal power with the Lok Sabha. And these includes money bill can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. Emergency, national emergency can only be removed in Lok Sabha itself. Even if Lok Sabha passes by simple majority, then national emergency could be revoked. Also, the financial bill, the first financial bill can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. The authority to decide whether the bill is finance bill or not is also lies with the Speaker. The Lok Sabha has more number than Rajya Sabha, so in joint sittings, it's always the Lok Sabha which prevails over the Rajya Sabha. No continuous motion can only be passed in Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, the adjournment motion is only there in Lok Sabha. So these are the areas where the power of Rajya Sabha is unequal than Lok Sabha. And there are some powers where the power of Rajya Sabha is more than Lok Sabha. These areas include Article 249, under which the Rajya Sabha can authorize the Parliament to make laws on any subject with respect to state list. Then there is Article 312, where Rajya Sabha can, or where it can authorize the parliament to create all India services common to both state and center under Article 312. So these are the things which are given extra power to the Rajya Sabha. Next we deal with is the committees, which is Public Accounts Committee. I mean, what I can tell you is that this is all factual, so you can read yourself. What I can tell you is that both members of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha are its members, and its term is 1 year, right? So what it does is that it scrutinizes the report sent by the CAT. Next is Estimate Committee. So Estimate Committee is trivia is that it only has members from Lok Sabha. It does not have any members from Rajya Sabha. And it was introduced in 1956. Sorry, it was in 1950, 1956. What is its work is to see how efficiency could be brought in the administrative system, and it ensures that how economy, I mean, what alternative policies, it suggests the alternative policies that what could be also introduced by the government. Third is Committee on Public Undertaking. It is 15 members, 10 from Lok Sabha and 5 from Rajya Sabha. What does it do? It scrutinizes the audits of PSUs, right? One trivia about Committee on the Public Undertaking is that a member of Rajya Sabha cannot become its chairman, right? And one common thing about all the committees is that a minister can never be part of any of these committees. So two trivia you have to remember: one, minister cannot be part of these committees, and second, the Rajya Sabha member cannot be chairman of the Committee on Public Undertakings. Next is Departmental Standing Committee. So this was a new concept. It is introduced in 1983, and the work of Departmental Standing Committee is to examine the bill pertaining to that ministry, to consider the demands for grants in the budget, to consider annual report of the ministries, and to consider national basic long-term policy document. So these standing committees has members from both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And if the deputy speaker becomes member of any of these committees, he automatically becomes its chairman. Next is Business Advisory Committee. The speaker is its chairman. Rest of the committees are there in the book. Lakshmikant, I think it's very factual. I don't need to understand. You can read it from the book, but you need to understand which is the largest committee, or which committee has only Rajya Sabha members or only Lok Sabha. These things you need to understand, because the question was one asked 2-3 years back about which is the committee which has the largest members. So this is not something which needs to be scrapped off. Now let's come to the last part of this chapter, which is parliamentary privileges. So parliamentary privileges are they are special rights, immunities and exemptions which are enjoyed by the two houses of parliament, their committee and their members. And why they are necessary? They are necessary to secure the independence and effectiveness of their action. So there is this thing that without these privileges, the House can neither mean their authority, dignity and honor, nor can protect their members from any obstructions in the discharge of their parliamentary responsibilities. So parliamentary privileges, one trivia here is that it is not extended to the parliament. No, sorry, it is not extended to the president. Very big trivia. President is just parliamentary privilege is not extended to him. But it has been extended to Attorney General and Union Ministers. So even when Union Minister is not a part of Parliament, because he has the right to not be a part of any Parliament House for 6 months. Even then, when he is in parliament, he enjoys these parliamentary privileges. This can be classified under two subheadings. One is individual privileges, and second is collective privileges. So, collective privileges are privileges belonging to each house of the parliament collectively. So, collectively, all the MPs enjoy these privileges. So, they include, first of all, when there is any secret sitting of the house, then the media cannot publish the proceedings of the house. When there is secret meeting, when there is normal meeting, then the media have been given freedom to publish the proceedings of the house. Second is it can exclude strangers from its proceeding and hold secret sittings in important matters. Thirdly, it can make rules to regulate its own procedures and conduct of business. And fourthly, it can punish members as well as outsiders for breach of its privilege or for contempt by reprimand or by imprisonment. So some media houses has been announced imprisonment penalty by the parliament for breaching the privilege. Then fifthly, it has right to receive immediate information on arrest, detention, conviction or imprisonment of any of its members. Sixthly, it can institute inquiries and order the attendance of witnesses and send for relevant paper and records. Seventhly, the courts are prohibited to inquire into the proceedings of house or its committee. So court cannot interfere in the functioning of the parliament. Eighthly, no person can be arrested or no legal process, civil or criminal, can be served within the presence of the house without the permission of the presiding officer. So without the permission of presiding officer, you cannot arrest anyone, you cannot initiate any legal process against any of the members. Then there are individual privileges. So individual privileges are those which belong to every individual individually. So these include that they cannot be arrested during the session of the parliament and 40 days before the parliament session begins and 40 days after the parliament session ends in civil cases. In criminal cases they can be arrested, but in civil cases they cannot be arrested when the parliament starts before 40 days before and 40 days after. Secondly, they have freedom of speech in parliament. They can say anything inside the parliament and they can vote freely, and the court cannot or nobody can do anything for MP who has said anything inside the parliament. They are also exempted from jury services and they can refuse to give evidence or appear in the court when the parliament is in session. So these are the parliamentary privileges given to the individuals individually. So this ends the chapter of parliament, and I believe this is the most important chapter of Lakshmikant. I tried to make it simple. The rest you have to read the book, and the things which I have said in the lecture that these are very important. You have to give special focus on these areas because these are the areas where UPSC is asking a lot of questions these days. So we'll start with the next chapter in the next lecture. Thank you.